some £15 million or so, there could be something of a shareholder revolt at the company's annual general meeting this afternoon. So are chief executives worth their money? Joining us from central London are inequality campaigner Malcolm Clark of One Society and international headhunter William Knight Hamilton. If I could start with you, Mr. Clark, presumably you think they're not.
Of course. I mean, if you just take a gut instinct of both myself and I suspect most people, you think actually a kind of 50 million type pay package is excessive, but then it's not just myself. PIRC, the internal sort of recruitment consultants, also take that view that this is excessive, and certainly compared as well to what's happening on the shop floor with people's wages at the checkout, but also just politically, I think it's out of kilter with what's happening.
OK, Mr. Knight Hamilton, can anyone be worth 15 million? Or if you look across these shores to the United States, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars. Can any chief bring that extra value to a company?
If he increases shareholder value and keeps everybody in work in his company, bearing in mind, of course, that we do need to have high income, high bonuses, high salaries to attract the right talent, and we have competition, just as in Division 1 football, professional football players, they already have terribly inflated salaries and bonuses. So I say it's necessary. Unfortunately, it does seem at this time, this particular time, the economy's very down, and many people are having pay cuts. So obviously there are difficult times ahead, but I would say that it is necessary to pay bonuses for the right people. Otherwise, you won't have those executives running your companies.
Well, you say that, but, you know, if all companies acted in the same way, what would they do? Sit at home and twiddle their thumbs? They want to be paid like everyone else.
Well, of course they do, but I say again, you need a captain of the ship, or should we say a team at the top, that actually increase shareholder value and actually make the money, and it's wealth creation we're talking about.
OK, Mr. Clark, do you think anything could be done to control this, anything formally?
Well, firstly, let me just take issue with what's been said, because it's really only in the last 10 or 20 years that top pay, executive pay, has risen so much. It's risen, the most recent survey says it's risen in the last 10 years, it's risen kind of twice or even 4 times, and that's hugely more excessive than anything else that most people have. And shareholder value hasn't kept up. It isn't that these people are actually delivering the same value. It's the fact that top pay has hugely run away from everyone else's pay, and that's the real problem. If we take, say, market value, well, what about those people on the checkout in M&S? Really, you know, they're getting paid quite, you know, low wages, and they have to think, well, that's market value, but is that fair? We've got a kind of situation here that just doesn't value kind of between the bottom, the middle and the top.
Yeah, I mean, there's a disconnect going on here, Mr. Knight Hamilton. Sorry, Mr. Knight Hamilton, what do you come back on that?
OK, what I'm saying is that the people on the tills, all those hard-working people, still need jobs, and that depends on competition with, for example, M&S, other stores, other big retail and supermarkets and so on. And the chief exec's job is to keep those jobs for them. And the big problem, and the reason you mentioned inflated bonuses, competition is the problem. There's so much competition out there, internationally, of course, on the great international stage. You've got to keep up. You've got to pay the going rate for the right executives.
OK, the going rate. But do you think, Mr. Clark, there could be a kind of rule of thumb? People are talking about, you know, a 20 times multiple going on here between the lowest paid and the highest paid, something like that.
Well,
and I know
that's exactly right. I mean, David Cameron himself has set that in the public sector, so that, you know, and wage ratios are an important measure of trying to keep top pay kind of at a reasonable level and also raise the wages at the bottom. So that's exactly right, that companies should be aiming to minimise their wage ratio and to 20 to 1, and also to prevent a situation that's not M&S but more, you know, them and us, which it is at the moment. What about having more employee representation on the remuneration committees? Because it's precisely the same people who are setting the salaries, and that's what we need to stop, is actually more employee representation,
we do need the top people. And for the top people, you've got to offer the right package. It's an international stage. You have to pay for what you get.
Well, how do you answer that, Mr. Clark, that there's international competition here, and if we don't pay them in this country and our multinational and international companies don't pay these kind of executives this kind of money, they will go elsewhere?
absolutely there is, this market. Globally there are global issues, and I'm not saying that people shouldn't be paid, what they're worth, but actually we've got to take a look at this, both in this country and yes, around the world, and other people, other countries, other campaign groups around, and shareholder action around the world are actually saying, well, maybe now enough is enough. We all need to share the pain, and that starts at the very top. And it's about changing the culture. And I'm not. This won't take a year.
We need wealth creation, and to do that, you've got to have the right captain on the right ship.
OK, thank you very much indeed. We're going to ask you for a final quick word. You gave us it there, Mr Knight Hamilton, William Knight Hamilton there, and Malcolm Clark, and that M&S AGM annual general meeting takes place today.